Located in a small and quiet parish in Shropshire is a historic yet quaint White Ladies Priory. This old religious building today remains in ruins, however it's a scenic and quiet walk through the Reformation and throughout history. This small priory might not look like much, however its famous legacy is its role in aiding Charles II to escape following the Battle of Worcester during the English Civil War. Join us today as we delve into the history of this fascinating building. Interestingly also, this ruin is considered one of the spookiest and most haunted places in England. If you do enjoy these videos, please support the channel by subscribing. The origins of the White Ladies Priory are thought to have been around the late 12th century, and the first documented evidence suggests it dates back to 1186. The earliest dedication inside the priory was to St Leonard of Noblack, a saint who was popular after a number of miracles and was associated with the liberation of prisoners. A 1212 charter from King John confirms that the nuns belonged to St Leonard of Brawood, Brawood being a nearby town. During the reign of King John, the nuns here benefited from the king's generosity. He visited Brawood on a number of occasions, and he gave the priory different parts of land, including a weir on the River Severn, creating fishing rights. The White Ladies or nuns who lived inside the priory were then given much more land, including some in Nottinghamshire. The priory would also gain a church in Tibshelf in Derbyshire. By the time of the dissolution of the monasteries in the Tudor era, the White Ladies owned much land around the East Midlands. This brought in a fair amount of money into the priory, benefiting the nuns. When Prioress Alice Wood retired in 1498, she was assigned income from the estates in Tibshelf, and this equated to about a fifth of the total revenue of the priory. From this date, decline set in. In 1521, it was found that although the priory wasn't in debt, the prioresses didn't really know how to calculate their accounts. In 1524, the dormitory was reported to be in a bad state. In 1531, the priory had a revenue of £31, where expenses come into £14, including £5 for the chaplain. The following year's figures were identical. This brought the priory well under the threshold of the dissolution of the Lesser Monasteries Act in 1536, which dissolved all houses worth less than £200 per year. Following the suppression, most of the convent buildings were taken down, however parts of the church remained. During the English Civil War, the owners of the property and land in which the priory stood on were supporters of the Royalist cause. Their servants too were all Catholic, and the White Ladies Priory was not occupied at the time. It was being run by housekeepers and servants. Following the Royalist defeat at the Battle of Worcester on the 3rd of September 1651, Charles II was forced to flee. He had many adventures, most famously hiding out in an oak tree at the nearby Boscobel Wood. He would evade capture and arrive in France eventually, however this 6-week escape had a major effect on his life. Whilst hiding out in the Boscobel estate, he would be met by George Pendrell. He and his brother disguised the king as a farm labourer in leather doublet, a pair of green breeches and a jump coat of the same green. Pendrell's brother Richard also cut the king's hair, leaving it short on top but longer at the sides. As Charles II was an unusually tall man, the shoes which were given to him were too small and he had to cut them to make them fit. The leather on the shoes would cause the king's feet to bleed. The king would then stay inside the White Ladies Priory, as many Catholic priests had done during the dissolution of the monasteries, hiding from the people who seek to imprison them. Today, not much is left of the White Ladies Priory, but let's talk about its interior. The nuns' church was a relatively small and plain building without aisles, and today, several of the walls survive to their original height. At the east end is the presbytery, which is now just a low wall. Here, the high altar would have stood. The nuns' choir stall stood to the west of this, between the two transepts. The wide round-headed archway leads from the choir into the foundations of where the north transept was. As elsewhere in this church, the archway's column shafts and capitals are skillfully carved in a Romanesque style. The west end of the church has no door, however there are remains of 2 windows. The doorways lead out onto the nave to the north and to the south. The north door led to a cloister, which was probably timber framed as not much of this stands. The plan of the White Ladies Priory was unusual in having religious and domestic buildings on the north side of the church, rather than on the south. The low roofline would have ensured that the buildings were not always in shade, and their position may have been chosen as it was closer to a water supply. The wall on the south side enclosed a burial ground in which the members of the priory would have been buried. Against the east wall was a Tudor timber-framed house built by the Skevington family. Interestingly, the history of the White Ladies Priory is today pretty much forgotten. However, its interesting tale regarding the escape of Charles II is also one that's forgotten in the canon of English history. It's visited today by a number of people who do experiments on paranormal activity, as it's a rather eerie ruin. Today it's unmanned as an English heritage site, and unfortunately when we visited there had been some heritage crime in which some vandals had set fires next to the brickwork. Once again, thank you for watching The Untold Past. To support the channel, make sure to subscribe, and also check out some more of our videos if you're interested. We have a vast selection on castles and other historic buildings. Once again, thank you for watching.